And last week we told you about the discovery by San Diego researchers of the wake-up gene, a sort of biological alarm clock. We'll learn more about what it is, how it works from one of those researchers as KPBS Evening Edition continues.
Ever wonder why you wake up at the same time every day, regardless of whether your alarm starts ringing? There's a gene for that. However, until now, there was little known about the gene that tells our body to wake up. Scientists at the Salk Institute in La Jolla have discovered that gene. And joining us to tell us more about what that means is Dr. Sachin Panda, one of the researchers who made the discovery, published last week in the Journal of Science. Thank you, Doctor, for being here.
Thank you.
So when did scientists first discover that we even had this internal clock?
Oh, so that's a very interesting story. Almost 50 years ago, one volunteer wanted to test this, so he made a homemade telephone and went down a cave where there was no clue of time. And every day when he got up or went to bed, he would call outside and tell when he was going to bed or waking up. And what was interesting was, after a couple of weeks, it became very obvious that this person was waking up almost 24 and a half hours after the previous day. So for example, today if he woke up at 6, tomorrow he would wake up at 6:30, and so on and so on. That, I think, is the first concrete clue that we have a clock, inbuilt clock, that tells us to wake up at a certain time every day.
So now, more than 50 years later, we have your research. You actually discovered this gene. So why is it important to know specifically that mechanism that tells us to wake up?
Yeah, so I'll give you a little bit about how the body clock works. So for almost 10 to 15 years, we knew that there is a protein called period protein. And this protein level goes up throughout the day and then comes down at night, as if there is a break that puts this protein level low. And in the morning, that break has to come off, and then this protein can go up, and our body can read how many proteins are there and can tell the time. So if you don't have this gene, then in the morning that break doesn't come off. So the protein level does not rise above more, so body gets confused what time it is. So that's why it's very important to know this mechanism that turns on the clock in the morning.
I think a lot of us probably feel that we're always getting up too early and we don't want to hear our alarm clock. Do other factors sort of play in that kind of interfere with this clock?
Yeah, so that's what we want to actually study. What happens? We know there are many factors that interfere with the clock. For example, if you stay up all night, if you're working in a night shift job or something like that, or for kids who are playing video games all night, after a few days our clock gets disrupted. And as we age, our clock also does not work very well. So we'll go and test what happens to this gene when there is so much disturbance to our sleep-wake cycle or when we age. And if we know that, then we can possibly fix the clock and then bring back a good clock to our body.
And finally, quickly, this has other ramifications in terms of disease. It's not just about sleep. Why is that?
Yeah, so sleep is just an indicator of how our body clock works. In our body, almost every single cell has a clock. Just like our brain tells us when to sleep and when to wake up, our liver clock tells when to burn down that fat or burn down that sugar. And your muscle clock tells you what is the good time to go run outside or go to gym. So if you don't have a good clock, essentially your day becomes very confusing, very tiring. So that's why it has more implication. And when the clock breaks down, then as you can imagine, the person becomes more susceptible to diseases like cancer, diabetes, obesity, and also many infectious diseases. So that's why we're more excited about knowing how the clock works and how to prevent it from breaking down.
It's fascinating, Dr.
Thank you.
Sachin Panda, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.